What's up? It's Chris with Superfly, and we are checking out the PPG1 Pop Quiz. The logic here is that you don't want to get very far in your paramotor career without dotting certain I's and crossing certain T's. And we, over the years, have figured out the main pitfalls that are out there looming, and we put them all in one place. Figured out all the things that we wish we would have said to people before they went and did a big flight, and we put them all in one place. And we're looking for just general clarity, just rules of engagement, basically. We want them all on the table. We want it all sorted out. And so we're sitting here today, and we're going to go over the PPG1 Pop Quiz, and you're invited. Here we go. Okay, here we go. What is the nature of learning to paramotor and paramotor flying in general? Specifically, how risky is it? And the quick answer to that is this is risky business. Instructor and pilot do our very best, but you're leaving the ground, right? You're navigating in 3 dimensions. There's no pause button, and we need to be very clear about that. Everybody had better be paying attention. Even when we're giving it 100%, things can happen. Laser beam focus. What are the main ways that you could become injured in the process of learning how to fly, and how can we avoid them? So, number 1, prop strike while starting on the ground, your back, etc. So, main thing is check the kill switch and the throttle. Make sure the throttle returns to idle. Have the motor on your rack, on your back, or use a strap. Fumble on takeoff could result in prop strike. So we choose good conditions. We're kill switch happy, right? We commit to the takeoff, but if we're falling, we kill the engine and keep the hands and legs out of the prop. Remember, the area back behind the pilot is for the paramotor and the propeller, and your zone is up in front. So go fetal position. Don't let any big long arms, legs, etc. be back there. This could happen because of a failure to run adequately during the takeoff. So next one is failure to climb out smoothly. So in general, you need to be ready to go full throttle, and the best way to do that is to do, some people say, upwards of 40 or 50 lean backs. That's where you learn how to go relatively full throttle while standing on the ground. And then also be ready to steer against the torque. Figure that out in a simulator. Adjust smoothly. Execute the climb. Make sure it happens. You want to climb out to 50, 100 or more feet. It's not cool to take off and go halfway on the throttle. You need to get up and out of there. As soon as you have 50 or 100 feet, then all of a sudden we have options and we have time to troubleshoot things. So we have to get it. Failure to oscillation in general. If you have oscillation, you need to pick a side. If you just tilt your head to the side and keep it over to one side, reduce the power, and don't go back and forth with the hands, you will smooth out. It's best to have ways to qualify people that they're not going to oscillate, like going tandem, doing some toes, kiting, etc. Those things are good oscillation insurance, but it still can happen. Remember, we're adding sometimes 60, 70 pounds of extra weight to a glider that you may have towed with, and it's going to be different. It's going to respond differently. So, next, failure to stabilize on approach. So, power off, legs down, elbows in, eyes on the horizon, let it fly. So when you have your legs down and also together, when you glue your knees together and your feet together, it makes you steady on approach. Same thing with elbows in, same thing with eyes on the horizon. You do want to let it fly full fast on the way in. Mismanaged flare. Obviously, best insurance is to let it fly when you're on the way in. You want to go full fast, smoothly initiate the flare evenly, and then hold it as appropriate. Again, we're hoping that you have a way to qualify as being good at flaring, even if you have your instructor push you a couple feet in the air and then you get to execute the flare a few times in a row. That can work. So, next question. What is the instructor's role? Where does the instructor's responsibility fall? So, we can do all sorts of prep. We can choose good gear, conditions, etc. We can test your understanding. We can do documents like this. But by the time the first solo happens, everything should be familiar. You need to listen closely on the radio and respond quickly. Ultimately, the responsibility falls to the student to execute well on the commands and to use their good sense. The instructor is just a guide. The student is the one flying. The instructor cannot fly the glider for the student. Now, we don't have a history of bad things happening in our school and under our watch, but if one bad thing were to happen despite our best efforts, it would just be unlucky, and it would be largely an unlucky thing that happened to the student. If there was an accident, who would be at fault? Well, if an accident happens, it's just bad luck. No fault, no blame. These things happen. The student's trying their hardest. The instructor couldn't have done anything more or better for the situation. And so that's what you want to feel every time you're getting ready to go do a significant flight, that we've done all the preliminary work. All the tandems, all the simulator, all the classroom, all the documents like this, all the kiting, all the simple flights, however you do them. That's how we do it. What are three of the many things you should be 100% sure of on each flight? Here we go. That the pre-flight is done and that you could get in the air. That you know exactly where you're supposed to navigate and that you know exactly how to land. Basically, you want to have the feeling that you could do it all without radio. What if there was an engine failure or a radio failure during your flight? How would you behave? What would you be able to handle it? Would anyone be to blame? No, basically no problem. You know the plan, you have all the pieces of the puzzle, and you can handle it. No blame, no problem. Just go and execute a simple flight. So we wouldn't, if one of those things were to happen, that the engine died or that the radio failed and we had no comms, it wouldn't be like, oh crap, what the heck happened? It would be like, oh, that was the thing we planned for. Glad it worked out, and then obviously we would try to prevent that from happening again. Could we possibly anticipate all the scenarios that might unfold during a training flight, first motor flight? No, it's not even possible. We do our best to engineer success. We try to develop skills that will help us pull it off if things get weird, but things sometimes get weird. Do you feel like a proper groundwork was laid for you? Are there any of the concepts that you would like to review before you take a solo flight? And the answer for you needs to be that you can't imagine doing any more prep. That you are ready to fly, that it's time to fly. That's how we want it to feel before you go. And if it doesn't, it's your job to throw on the brakes and just say no. Do you feel like the instructor did everything possible to prepare you for solo flight? No instructor could have possibly done more prep, and here would be the list of things that you would have done for your first flight. You would have had an intro to the sport. You would have done some kiting, maybe a tandem, maybe a little flight, some flare practice in the simulator. You would have done some ground school. You would have seen some books and videos. You would have done some flight planning, and you would have proved that you could read back the procedure for the whole flight, start to finish. Radios would be checked, and then risks would be identified, and the mitigation would be handled. When the question is asked before you go to do your first solo flight, the question should be, do you have any questions? And the answer should be no. The answer should be no questions. Again, with the questions, is there anything at all we could do to help you better understand the process, the procedures, the risks, and risk avoidance? And you should answer back, nope, all set. So then if we ask you the elements of a simple flight, it should start with the pre-flight. A smooth yet aggressive takeoff, a transition that's smooth into the seated position with good heading management, meaning straight into the wind, positive climb rate, smart flight path, long final, kill the engine, nail the flare, and set down the glider nicely behind you. That's how it's supposed to go. Those are the key elements. So, we would like you to describe in as much detail as possible the flight plan for your first flight. So, from the beginning, solid pre-flight with run-up and radio check, smooth takeoff, long run into the air while managing torque and throttle. As the ground falls away, look at the horizon, steering while you climb. At a critical altitude, meaning like 150 feet, where you could easily do a couple circles with no consequences, then allow some smooth circles to happen with the torque. No one wants to go fighting the torque on their first flight, so go ahead and make a couple circles with the torque and you'll feel it. It'll be plain as day. You'll practice slowly easing off the throttle, some transitions during this flight to upright, and then back into the back into the comfortable flying position. And then also we'll do some practice approaches up in the sky. So we'll say, okay, we're going to imagine we're going to land at some magical point up here in the sky. Go ahead and do a right 90, legs down, chest forward, elbows in, eyes forward. Theoretically hitting the kill switch, but not so much. And then eyes forward and go all the way through the hands up, then gentle round out, and obviously you won't flare up at altitude during practice, but you imagine what it would look like. When it's finally time to land, then set up the long final, get her into wind, rock forward, legs down early, look ahead, engine off, look at your right hand, look at your left hand, get ready to move them both as a unit. Make sure that you round out nicely, get your smooth flare, and then all the way, meet the ground running, set the glider down nicely behind you. We ask our guys to initial that they've taken care of all this stuff. That's our checklist. And that's it. So obviously this isn't a complete list, but this is a great start. And if you can cruise through the PPG1 pop quiz and have reasonable answers to it, then you're looking pretty good for your first flight. No doubt you want to circle back on the USPPA syllabus because it has a comprehensive checklist of the things that you should nail, and that's available to everyone regardless of membership, etc. You can find it on Google. And the point is that do some work, and if you ever feel like you're about to put somebody in the air who hasn't done all the preliminary work, or if it feels like your instructor is about to put you in the air and you haven't checked all those boxes, take a step back. Remember, there's no hurry. We're in this for the long term, 10 years, 20 years, you name it, and take your time. So if you have any feedback on this, we'll take it. We want to continually update and add to this P1 pop quiz. We're happy to share the Google Doc with you anytime. We're easy to find, Chris at superflyinc.com, or find us on Facebook. Thanks so much.